Welcome to Restoring Hope, the podcast of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, where we encounter stories of faith, renewal, and the transforming power of Christ's redeeming love. I'm your host, Patrick Higgins. Today, we're joined by two companions of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, Brian Rodriguez and Mario Castellanos, men who've responded to God's call not from within vowed religious life, but from within the everyday realities of work, family, and community. Their witness reminds us that the spirituality of the precious blood isn't confined to one vocation. It's a call to all who desire to bring reconciliation, healing, and hope to a wounded world. In this conversation, we'll explore what led Brian and Mario to become companions and how they live out that call in daily life and what they see as both the struggles and the opportunities facing younger Catholics today. Mario and Brian, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you?
Good, thank you, Patrick. Thanks for having us.
Same.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to talking to you. So let me just start in on this because we wanted to talk to you obviously because you're younger Catholics. You're in your 30s. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So as younger Catholics, can you share a bit about your personal faith journey and what first drew you to the church in a deeper way?
Sure. I mean, we at least it's funny because a lot of times. Well, let me go back to how we know each other. Brian and I, our home parish is Our Lady of the Rosary in Union City, California, over here in the San Francisco Bay Area, just a little north of San Jose. And we go way back in the sense that we first met each other through ministry. We were both volunteering as confirmation coordinators and confirmation leaders. And through that, along with some other folks, an organic friendship really came about, and we've been friends ever since. So I guess the reason why I bring that up is because the answer, I think, to the question, at least for me, is we've always been involved in parish life. Okay. Growing up in the church, and at the same time growing up in the world, we had our fair share of how much church is enough and how many activities at the parish is enough, and then want to go do things outside of the parish. But it's always been a second home for me. And again, I can't speak for Brian on everything, but I know, we've known each other long enough, so sometimes I'll say we. But yeah, it's being active in the parish, had that sense of community that you get from that. At least that's been my story and why I've always been, involved in parish life.
That is fantastic to hear you say that the church was a second home to you. That's fantastic to hear you say that. Yeah. Brian, what about you? What's your journey?
For me, I mean, at one point in my life, I think church wasn't a second home for me, but it was actually like my home. My mother passed away when I was 11, and I was just starting to learn piano at that time. And so our pastor, who presided at her funeral mass, asked if I wanted to play something. And I don't know how or why, but it was, they had me play the song called The Song of Farewell at the final commendation. And so I wasn't very good. I only knew how to use my right hand. I didn't know how to use my left hand on the piano. But the organist, our longtime organist at Our Lady of the Rosary, bless her, Margaret Williams, after that funeral mass, she asked me to come back and play on Sundays with her. And so through that, I became more proficient at piano and grew a relationship with this woman who, over years became like a second mom to me. And our pastor at the time, Father Jose, he even became like a father to me too. I went to school at the parish, so he would come and find me after school and make sure I'm staying busy, knowing that my dad worked and my sister was in school, so I was a middle schooler who, going to an empty house after school, making sure I was okay, like mentally, and so for the longest time, I just lived in that parish, and so I just became involved in everything. And then as time went on, just doing ministry with Mario, that's just how it evolved, And
Oh,
so
well, let's talk about that ministry. I'm curious, what initially introduced you to the Missionaries of the Precious Blood and their spirituality?
the weekend helpers at our parish. So for the longest time, it's only been a one priest parish, and so we had Father Jeff Finley who came and did English Sunday masses with us, and so over time, I think at different times for both of us, we actually became very close to Jeff Finley, and he's the one that introduced us to the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. And later on, I mean, CPPS has been at Our Lady of the Rosary for the longest time. And then even for
And
me,
for our listeners who may not know what CPPS, because I explain this a lot on the podcast. CPPS is the original Latin. It is the Latin for Missionaries of the Precious Blood. Just for our listeners who may not know.
yeah. And so at one point I was in a seminary formation, separated from that formation, and then immediately after that was CPPS came in and has pretty much helped me stay in community, stay nurtured, kind of help me keep my faith. And if you ask anyone who's been separated from any kind of formation, whether it's religious or priestly or whatever, whether it's a good separation or a bad separation, it's very emotional. And so CPPS was, they helped me work through that.
It was through Father Jeff Finley, who I love dearly, that we first met the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, and CPPS used to staff St. Edward's Parish in Newark, along with a few other parishes here in the East Bay. And then, through other folks, through parishioners, I met other members of the community. Through a friend, I came over to a Saturday Mass and lunch for the East Bay LGBT Catholic gathering that was happening here at Sonino at a time. And that was awesome to be able to, see a religious group, a religious community, a Society of Apostolic Life in this sense, ministering to a community that most of the church does not take the time to listen to. And that's just one of many things that spoke to me and really made me see that I also had precious blood spirituality too. Meeting Father Jack McClure, meeting Father Joe Nassel, meeting Father David Matz. These are wonderful, wonderful guys who I appreciate their friendship and just the accompaniment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, okay, so is your involvement strictly as companions? You'd mentioned earlier that you were involved in confirmation. So do you feel specifically called to be companions, or do you engage in other forms of ministry and parish involvement?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that's one of the things is you can wear many hats and those things overlap. I'm the director of youth and young adult ministry at my parish in Fremont, California, Holy Spirit Catholic Church in Fremont. We're one of the biggest parishes in the Diocese of Oakland, and I stepped into that role 5 years ago, and that community has shown me nothing but just real love, and I just try to love them back, and just walk with any youth or young adults that walk through the doors, and just try to ask myself and ask them, how can I serve you? And so yeah, so it's been great. But yeah, no, the Companions is a great community that I think for me strengthens and fortifies and really gives me a rock to lean on, and really helps me out in that sense. When then I go do my other ministry, yeah.
Absolutely, Brian.
For me, I don't see it as an either or. I see it as a both and, right? So, I mean, I don't see it as just companion ministry. I see it as being a companion with the precious blood spirituality bleeding over into my other ministries. So whatever I'm doing, I'm always bringing precious blood with me, whether I'm helping in OCIA or in confirmation or even just doing music. I'm always going to be companion in that spirituality is always going to be with me, whether in whatever I'm doing.
Okay. Well, so what I want to, you're both obviously what we would classify as younger Catholics. You're younger. You're in your 35, a lot younger than me, obviously, but you're younger. You're in your 30s. Do you have you so depending on who you talk to, people think young people are walking away from the church, young people are coming back to the church. But have you encountered challenges or doubts along the way, and how have you worked through them?
Well, for me, I mean, it's that question is something that my whole ministry revolves around that. Working with youth and young adults, I would say challenges, yes, and the challenges I think are opportunities. I would say doubts, no, and there's not really doubts there because one thing I know is this. We're now working with a generation that doesn't remember the time before the iPhone. And that generation, is what I appreciate about them is because they have information at their fingertips. It's a double-edged sword. You got to be wary of the fake news and wary of these people with bad intentions or deception. But at the same time, because you have that information at your fingertips, I feel like I tell people, these kids can smell BS a mile away. So now, when it comes to ministry, it's no longer a thing of, okay, let me teach you what we used to call CCD. Let me teach you, this is what you got to know. These are your prayers. Give you a stamp. You're good to go. That doesn't cut it anymore. Now it's like, okay, let me introduce you to someone, and his name is Jesus. Let me introduce you to someone who, whatever brokenness, whatever weight, whatever self-hatred or shame or whatever you carry, he's the one that has those loving words and can lift that right off of you and just envelop you in his love that there is nothing else like it. And it's like if because now you see like young adults, right? They're looking for something meaningful. If they're just looking for a club, you can find that anywhere else. You can go to your coffee shop and be part of a club. But if you're looking for an actual relationship with God, an encounter with God, then I think that's where now the church, again, looking at it as an opportunity, a challenge as an opportunity. I think the church is now being called to truly be herself, and that's what I love. And I think Precious Blood spirituality is the heartbeat of that. So, that's my take.
Absolutely, that's very well stated. Brian, what about you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, but who doesn't at this point? I mean, I'm surprised I just didn't lose it all the way when my mom passed away, but it was the saving grace of having someone accompany me through all of that to help me process my grief, to help me understand what the church actually teaches, about times of death and understanding, just to take that all in, to educate me and make sure I understood, like, it's not just, black and white, your mom's either in hell or heaven, it's there's just a lot of grain and a lot of faith that has to happen there,
Yeah, and that happened to you at a horribly young age. I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah.
How did you get through that? How did you find the grace to get through that? That's very young, very young.
Honestly, it was Father Jeff Finley. It was our pastor, Father Jose. It was Margaret. It was really just. It was my dad, my sister. It was just a community of people that I had to just rely on. You know.
Absolutely. So from both of your perspectives, what do you think? Because you both work with younger with children with not with children, but with younger Catholics and kids. From your perspective, what are the kind of the biggest challenges facing younger Catholics right now? What are you hearing from them?
You're more recent with them now.
Well, I mean, I think it's the same old stuff. One, I think it's very. I think this is a very much a first world problem. It's very easy to fall into the idea of, well, if I'm making enough money, if I got my car paid off, if I've got my house and I'm on time, my mortgage is fine, then everything's going pretty good. I don't really need, there's really no necessity or need for God. And I think that's a common thing that not just young adult Catholics, but I think everyone can fall into. And that's one thing that I mentioned to the teens when I'm doing confirmation stuff. It's like, a relationship is meant to go through its ups and downs, and God is not a genie in a lamp that you rub to get your three wishes from, and when things are going, all sunshine and rainbows, there's really no need to foster that relationship. But then when things are down in the dumps, you don't really know what to do. And I said, Jesus never told us he'd promise us a life of, a perfect happiness and no misery. No, the only thing he promised was that he would help us carry our crosses. And I think that no matter what, no matter how much money someone has, no matter how much everything seems like it's going fine and dandy, and especially now with technology advancing at the rate that it's advancing, I think people are realizing that no matter how advanced we get, there's still an emptiness that is not satisfied by all these great technologies and AI and all these great cars and the money and all this stuff. I think there's still an emptiness that the human heart and the human soul will not be satisfied until it gets a piece of what it's really thirsting for. And I think that's why the church and the faith stay relevant. And just like how it is, it's not a one size fits all. There's going to be people who come to faith early in their life. There's going to be people who come to faith after a tragedy happens. There's going to be people who unfortunately never come to faith. But I think that it's that accompaniment and encountering people individually that we as a church, and especially as missionaries of the precious blood, that's what we're called to do.
That's I keep saying this, but that is very well stated. It's easy to believe when times are good. It's much harder to believe when times are bad. Absolutely. Absolutely. Brian, what about you?
I'm not as current with the young people as Mario is, but when I was doing youth ministry, I think there's like this underlying desire for truth, right? At least like when we were doing it, 2017? Mm-hmm. A lot of the questions I would get from these teens were always things that were countercultural. So I would get pulled to the side like after confirmation class, and I would get a question like, "Hey, I have this friend who's gay, and my mom says that they're not going to go to heaven because they're gay. Is that true?" And first of all, I was appalled. Because how can you just condemn someone just like that right off the bat? And you're not even God, So, it's like how do you waver through like bad catechesis like that?
How do you? Yeah.
And so, I think those are the questions that really, at that time, were turning the young people away from the church. Because they have all these friends and family members who they actually love and care about, and then you have this like condemnation coming in saying, "Oh, these people aren't going to be in your life when or once they pass on, or they're going to be condemned and they're going to live this horrible life or whatever." That's a complete turnoff.
Absolutely. So from both of your perspectives, do you what do you think about, why do you think some people, young people, feel disconnected from the church? You just named a few of the things, but is there a deeper issue out there about why they may feel disconnected from the church?
Yeah, I think we're at a maybe an inflection point here where for the longest time, people were conditioned to, hey, as a family, as all the families on the block, all the families in the neighborhood, you get up early on Sunday morning, you put on your Sunday best, you go to church. It was expected, and if you didn't, you were kind of shunned. And I think now that we're in a post-Christendom world, again, I'm excited about it because I feel that now we're back in the times of, the apostles. This is now authentic, real evangelization again, where it's going back to, why is this important? What does this mean? Why do I need this for my life? And I think that challenge is a great opportunity, and it's very exciting, to now try to authentically evangelize. And I want to bring up, there's this book called Divine Renovation by Father Mallon, James Mallon, I believe. And he started a whole movement with it. And it's pretty cool. If you get a chance, read it. It's about how do you turn your parish from a sleepy, check the box kind of parishioner parish to a vibrant parish that's really feeding the people that come through the doors and reaching out to the broader community. And one thing he said that the old model, which doesn't work, never has, but was the old model was behave, believe, and belong. So it means that if you act the part, you behave, and then you believe. So you give lip service to whatever the creed. You go to church. If you do those two things, then you'll be accepted by the community. Then you'll belong to the community. But what he's saying is that Jesus and the Gospels show us that the opposite is the truth. He shows that first, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, no matter where you come from, everyone belongs. Everyone is loved. Everyone is made in the image and likeness of God. Just like Pope Francis was big on that, right? Everyone belongs. Everyone belongs. Once people know that they're loved, then there's a seed that can be planted where the ascent of faith can happen. And then people start to believe. People start to believe in God. People start to believe in the love of Jesus. People start to believe in, like what Brian was saying, the sacraments and the grace that's bestowed, that's given to us through the sacraments. And then once those things happen, then behavior, people start to be kinder to each other. People start to be more charitable. So that all flows and follows from, knowing that you belong and believing and having a relationship with God. So I think that, that I'm just going back to, maybe I'm answering the question too broadly, too generally.
No, you're not, because go ahead.
No, go ahead. No. You got. What do you think?
No, because what you started your question talking about authenticity, and I think that's great, because my next question to both of you was going to be, what role do you think authenticity plays in how younger generations respond to the church?
I think
that's a broad question too.
Huge.
Yeah.
No, it's huge. The younger generation, they're so. I mean, I'm 38, so according to the USCCB. According to the bishops, they classify a young adult as anyone 18 to 39 or 18 to 40. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I am 1 foot out the door, but I can tell, I work with the teens all the time, right? And I work with young adults who are in their early 20s, college age or just getting out of college, trying to figure out the next step of life after post grad. And I think authenticity, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's where it's at. I think everyone, I mean, even older folks now are so dismayed with and disillusioned by the political structure. I don't even know what you call that. The sideshow, the freak show that we see going on in national politics right now and international politics with all this stuff. It's you almost have to ignore it, because if not, you'll just be pissed off all the time. But
It is infuriating. No matter what side
it's infuriating.
You're on.
No matter which side you're on, it's infuriating.
Right.
So so I think authenticity is huge. People don't want the BS. People want to know, okay, what do you what do you believe? What do you have to offer? And I think people respect that, even if they don't agree with you. People respect that. So at least I'll die on that hill. At least that's the angle I take. Thanks.
No, I think that's very well stated. That is authentic in and of itself. So let me ask both of you. So we've kind of focused on maybe a little bit of the negative. What do you believe the church is doing well in reaching younger Catholics? And you can frame it in terms of what Missionaries of the Precious Blood are doing, or just in general. But what do you think that the church is doing well in reaching younger Catholics?
I don't know. Mine might be a hot take.
Go ahead. We want to hear it. Let's hear the hot take.
I think this kind of return to some of the traditionalisms of the church, of bringing back like the smells and the bells and the cassocks and the surplices, the adoration, the chant. I think a lot of that kind of plays a toll in the return of young people to the church, especially millennials like our age, because I think we are just talking about with Father Dave earlier, how we've, at least our generation, there's like a crisis after a crisis after a crisis. Like 9/11 happened a month after my mom passed away, and then the 2008 financial crisis, and then whatever crisis after that, COVID, and what we're in now. So I think, for young people living through that, returning back to church and seeing at least Mass pointing towards something holy that's separating us from the outside world, and we're just facing towards God in this, I think is playing a role, because now they're finding hope in that, I guess. But not only that, like, there's this push for like authentic friendships within the younger groups. They're looking for that community. So I think as they keep looking for that, they find young adult groups, or they find confirmation groups or youth groups that of people who are like them, who are searching for more, who have whatever quirks and like the same things they like. They can just be who they are. And I think that's another thing too. It's people are finding they can be who they are and still be Catholic. I think we're coming out of this older thought of Catholicism of like, you have to be this at church, you have to present this way and act this way. But I think there's like this greater understanding of like, yeah, we're sinful people, but there's hope and there's reconciliation, and I'm innately good at the end of the day. I'm not the sum of my greatest mistakes and sins, and being around, a group of people who see me for my goodness is what's going to keep the youth there.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're talking about, in essence, a sense of community.
For sure, yeah.
And so, Mario, what about you? What do you think that the church is doing well, or specifically missionaries of the precious blood?
Yeah, no, I think what the church is doing well, and what I think is just sorely needed, is this sense of welcome, this sense of encountering the other. This the church going out to the streets, the way Pope Francis would put it. I think that is what the church is doing well on a, and maybe some places better than others. But if you go to any parish, I mean, the majority of parishes that I've been to, and I visit a lot of parishes in different areas and stuff. You could tell that there is a sense that people are wanting to be welcoming. It's very few and far between parishes that I find that are just flat out cold, and people are very just kind of wary of. I think for the most part, I mean, and I would hope so. I would hope that the people who, the majority of folks that are faithful in practicing their faith, that the gospel sinks in, and when none of us are perfect, but I hope that it forms us to be better people, at the very basic sense, right? And so I think that the church is being now more awakened to that. I think that the church now, as we know, the secular world doesn't give a dang what we think, So it's more so like, hey, you have to listen to people. You have to listen to others who are not Catholic, or who are not Christian and don't come from that mindset. And you have to listen. And by listening, I think that makes us better at welcoming and better at dialoguing with others. And when it comes to the precious blood, I mean, I think precious blood spirituality and the precious blood community are kind of forerunners in that. I just hear about the various ministries, whether it be the Reconciliation Center over in Chicago, or whether it be ministry down at the border, or whatever's going on in Guatemala and stuff like that. I think that precious blood ministry and precious blood spirituality has always had that angle, that mindset, and I think that's what the church is getting right, and we need more of that. So, Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen on like social media, but like this whole return to being missionary disciples on just the church of going out to the peripheries, feeding the homeless, welcoming the other. With Francis and now with Pope Leo, there's like this growing trend on like Catholic social media, especially now with like this whole thing about Cardinal Pierre being brought to the Pentagon, being threatened or whatever. Like I was reading on Threads, they're like there's like this movement. They're like calling all the Christmas and Easter only Catholics, the cradle Catholics, the Labs Cap, and they're all talking about how these last two popes are very like, let's reach out to the peripheries, like going back to doing what Jesus did. And so like you read some of these comments of like, oh, I haven't been to a Catholic mass in 20 years, but let me grab my crucifix and my rosary and we'll ride at dawn to go protect Pope Leo.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. No, which is it's encouraging. It is. It is. So, how has both of your involvement with the CPPS community impacted your own sense of belonging in the church?
I'm grateful to the Missionaries of the Precious Blood in this community and the spirituality that I found. I found that I had the Precious Blood spirituality, and I also found that I was also given more of it by being a part of the community. I found that I found my tribe, so to speak, and so in a sense I'm grateful because I feel that now I can there's a community, there's a spirituality, and there's a message, and a way of not a worldview and a way of viewing ministry that kind of becomes an icon of what I believe, of what I feel down in my spirit. It becomes a badge, so to speak. But it's more than that. I don't want to minimize it. But it becomes an expression, a visible expression, one that I can tell other people about. And by telling them about it, when I tell people, I'm a companion of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, I feel like just by saying that, and once they start to, read a little more, they check out the website, or it encapsulates a lot of what I'm trying to say. So it really helps. It really helps in it, and I feel fortified. I feel like I'm supported. I know I'm loved, and I love you all. And it's just it's really good. It's great.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mara. That was great. That was great. That was a great testament. Brian, what about you?
The way they've always been there for me in the hardest times of my life, and helping me, I guess, care for the wounds at that time and understanding where God is in that wound. I think now has taught me it sucks that I had to go through all those things, but I can take my wounds and my scars now and help people who are going through that themselves. So now I have the skills and the empathy to accompany someone who's going through those, whatever it is, whether someone loses a family member. Like I'm just thinking about how one of my cousins passed away a couple of years ago. And her kids were there. How I could just be present with my cousins at that hardest time in their life. And it's how it's made us a stronger family unit because of that. So now we're doing all these like family functions all the time. But but CPPS has helped me see my wounds, clean my wounds, and use those for the people of God.
All right, now I'm going to look for a little advice from both of you. What do you think? How can communities in general better embody the message of hope, healing, and reconciliation for younger people? It's a big question.
That is. I think you're asking the wrong people for advice, though, Patrick.
Come on, Patrick.
I would say, okay, hope, healing, reconciliation. I think it starts, and I think every community can do this, and I think it's funny because as simple as it sounds, I think it would really force people to be a little outside their comfort zone. Um, to listen to young adults, listen to young people, um, and to engage by just inviting, on their terms. Whether it be like, hey, let's have pizza and a Q&A by the pastor. Let's say Father so and so would do like a piece. I mean, it was all the rage to do theology on tap. You still
Oh
see
yeah,
them?
it was. Yeah,
Yeah, you still
yeah.
see theology on tap once in a while, and those are really cool. Um, but yeah, and I think just moving outside of just that kind of an iteration, I think the bare bones remains the same. Listen to young adults and young people, invite them, open heart, big welcome, engage, so that they know that they're in a safe space. There's no judgment, there's no shame. There's only welcome, love, and introducing, or not introducing, but encouraging to whatever you're seeking, you will find it. And there's a lot here to find.
There is a lot to be found. Absolutely,
There's a
absolutely,
lot to be
yes,
found.
yes.
Yeah,
Brian,
yeah.
what about you? How would you answer that question?
Oh well, I mean, for younger people, from my experience, is don't write them off. You know, I remember when we were doing youth ministry, and we would have teens who would actually want to come and help and set up the parish for whatever special feast was coming up, or would want to go and feed the homeless on a Friday or something like that. And then they would get there, and then they would meet some grumpy person, and then it would kind of bum them out, and they didn't want to do it anymore. Or they would, I don't know, I don't know, they would just get turned off somehow, or you're just some kid, how are you really gonna, make an impact here? When, for me, doing youth ministry, they actually made the biggest impact on me and in my ministry. Seeing them want to just be a part of the parish, even though they still wanted to learn or they didn't know much. Like they just had the zeal of like, I want this to be my home, and then for them to get written off, it would break my heart. So,
Absolutely, yeah, it would. It absolutely would. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question. So, what would each of you say to a younger person who feels distant from the church but is searching for meaning or belonging?
Well, one, I think if I encountered someone like that just standing in front of me, right, without giving a picture perfect, cookie cutter answer, I would probably ask a lot of questions. I would ask questions, and I think maybe that's the place to start, is to have a genuine interest in another person. Where do you come from? What's your background? What's your hopes? What's your dreams? What are your worries and your anxieties? And I think that starts to unlock where this person can find that solace and that consolation in the church. Because I think that I think the church is for everyone. I mean, I think that's the Great Commission, and the question is everyone finding their place in it, and everyone finding where God touches them through the ministry of the church. But that I guess now I'm answering the question as like of someone who would engage someone like that. But the question was how would I speak to someone who's in that position, right? I guess I would tell them. Yeah, I think I guess I have to go back to what I said. I would ask them more about themselves. I would ask them, to share with me whatever they would like to share. If they could have anyone they could vent on, or anyone they could share whatever they want with when they're looking for meaning, they're looking for some kind of substance. What does that look like to them? What does that mean for them? And if I can then, coming from just the little bit that I know, maybe I can, give them something that they can chew on. Maybe there's a certain gospel or a certain passage in a certain gospel that would be very appropriate, or something that speaks to what they're speaking, or what they're touching on. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very abstract answer, I guess I'm giving because
No,
I
and
think
there was no incorrect answer. That was a great
yeah.
response. That was Brian. What about you? What would you say to someone who's feeling a little bit distanced?
I'll probably do my first thing. Will probably do what Mario did and start asking questions. But I would want to know what made them feel disfranchised, or what made them feel distanced from the church. Because then I would want to meet them where they are. Um, Maybe they're an LGBT youth, or maybe they just feel different, or they, whatever it is, And from there, I would start to utilize my resources of you belong. Well, first of all, reaffirm them that they do belong, that they are a child of God, and that they will always be loved by God. And then start using my resources of finding places that would be more affirming. So maybe Mario's youth group, I would recommend them to there. Or if they're a younger adult, bring them to Sanino, you know.
And by Sanino, you mean Sanino House, which is
Yes.
you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, but Sanino House is
Right.
the kind of explain what Sanino House is.
Man, Sanino House is
It's a mission house.
It's a mission house, and it's a house that's open to everyone, to be a place for people to come to be community, and ultimately, find God within that community, to be ministered to each other.
Yeah. To encounter Christ through each other, for sure. Yeah. Berkeley, California.
Berkeley, California. Brian and Maria, is there anything I haven't asked you that you feel that we should touch on, or anything that you want to say? Anything at all?
Well, I mean, I think that, like, yeah, no, thank you, Patrick. I mean, the questions that you asked, we could probably spend an hour on each one of those, because they're just, and I think the answers we gave, we're just scratching the surface. And I hope that, if anything, this kind of little conversation can just kind of fuel whoever's listening to their own thoughts, and just kind of be for the greater good. No, I mean, there's nothing else, unless we're going to talk about where we're going to go play golf next. Or I am a golfer.
Well, listen, I want to thank you both, Brian and Mario. Thank you for sharing your stories and your witness with us today. Your commitment as companions is a powerful reminder that the call to live the spirituality of the precious blood is alive and active in the world, especially in places where healing and reconciliation are needed most. So thank you both. This has been a delightful conversation. I really, really enjoyed it, and thank you for just sharing your time and experience with us.
No,
Thank you for having us.
yeah, the pleasure's been all ours, all mine. Thank you so much.
To our listeners, if today's conversation stirred something in you, whether it's a desire to reconnect with your faith, to serve others more deeply, or to simply learn more about the companions, we invite you to take that next step. God often speaks in those quiet stirrings. If you're interested in learning more about Missionaries of the Precious Blood, please visit preciousbloodus.org or check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next time, may you be renewed in the hope that comes through Christ's precious blood, and may you go forth as instruments of reconciliation in a world longing for peace.